What if I told you that the place you're standing right now is actually the most medium boring rock in the entire solar system? I mean, size-wise. Earth is basically the unremarkable middle child, not the biggest, not the smallest, just kind of there, and I find that genuinely fascinating because the size differences between these planets are so absurd that I struggle to wrap my head around them. Like, we're not talking about a small gap here, we're talking about the difference between a marble and a house, a golf ball and a basketball. So today I want to go through all 8 planets and honestly just react to how insane these numbers actually are, because I looked them up and my brain kind of broke a little bit. Let's start at the very bottom of the size chart, which means we're starting with Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in the solar system, and honestly it's kind of embarrassing for Mercury. Its diameter is about 4,880 kilometers. That's roughly a third of Earth's width. I mean, that's tiny. And here's the thing that gets me. It's only slightly bigger than our moon. Our moon. The thing we look at from our backyard every single night. Mercury is barely edging out the moon in a size competition, and somehow it still counts as a full planet. Is that fair? I genuinely don't know. Little Mercury, bless its heart, also has the most chaotic day-to-year relationship of anything in the solar system. A day on Mercury lasts 176 Earth days. Its year is only 88 days. So a day there is literally twice as long as a year. That's not a schedule, that's a nightmare. Moving outward from Mercury, we hit Venus. And this is where things get interesting. Venus has a diameter of about 12,104 kilometers, making it almost exactly the same size as Earth. We're talking 95% of Earth's width. They actually call Venus Earth's twin because of this, which I think is the most misleading nickname in the solar system. Twin? Venus has surface temperatures that would melt lead. The atmospheric pressure would crush you instantly. If Earth and Venus are twins, one of them had a genuinely horrifying childhood. But size-wise, they're almost identical. If you looked at a photograph with no labels, you'd struggle to tell them apart on size alone. That's wild to me. Same size? Completely different worlds. So then we have Earth itself, which is our reference point for all of this. Diameter of 12,742 kilometers. 5th largest planet in the solar system. Not impressive at all in the grand scheme of things, but it has us on it, so that counts for something, I guess. What I find interesting is that Earth is the largest of the 4 rocky inner planets, but compared to what's coming later in this list, it's barely a rounding error. Earth feels enormous because we live here. You drive across a country and it takes days. But in the context of what the outer planets are actually doing size-wise, Earth is basically nothing, and I mean that in the most affectionate way possible. Mars comes next, and Mars is smaller than Earth by quite a bit. Its diameter is around 6,779 kilometers, which is about half of Earth's width. Half. Mars is roughly the same as Earth's radius turned into a full diameter, which means if you hollowed out Earth you'd get 2 Marses sitting side by side. And we spend so much time talking about colonizing Mars and moving humanity there, which I'm all for, honestly, but sometimes I wonder if people realize how small it actually is. The total surface area of Mars is roughly equivalent to all the dry land on Earth combined, so it's not like it's cramped, but still, half the diameter. Something about that number always gets me. Now this is where the jump becomes actually insane, because after Mars there's a huge gap, the asteroid belt, and then we reach Jupiter. And Jupiter is not a little bit bigger than the inner planets. Jupiter is preposterous. Its diameter is about 139,820 kilometers. I'll just let that sit there for a second. You could fit over 1,300 Earths inside Jupiter's volume. Not 1,300. The width alone is more than 11 times Earth's diameter. If Jupiter were hollow, you could drop the entire inner solar system inside and probably still have room. I find this number genuinely hard to believe every single time I see it. It's like somebody made it up as a joke and then it turned out to be true. Jupiter is also the most massive planet by a huge margin, containing more mass than all the other planets combined and then multiplied again. And yet it spins faster than any other planet, completing a full rotation in under 10 hours. A gas giant the size of a near star, spinning faster than Earth. I looked up why, and it has something to do with conservation of angular momentum during formation, but that answer doesn't really satisfy me emotionally. Something that big should be slower. It's like watching a sumo wrestler win a sprint. Just wrong on a gut level. Saturn is the 2nd largest planet, and Saturn gets overshadowed by Jupiter in these conversations, which I think is genuinely unfair because Saturn is enormous in its own right. Its diameter is around 120,536 kilometers, about 9 times Earth's width. 9 times. Saturn is obviously the most visually iconic planet because of those rings. But here's a fact I find almost more interesting than the rings. Saturn is the least dense planet in the solar system. Its density is actually lower than water. If you could somehow find a bathtub large enough, and somebody please do this, Saturn would float. A planet 9 times the width of Earth would just bob around like a rubber duck. I genuinely love that about Saturn. It's the big fluffy cloud of the solar system. Enormous, beautiful, and somehow less dense than the thing coming out of your tap. Then we get to Uranus, which is where I start running out of appropriate adjectives. Uranus has a diameter of about 51,118 kilometers, roughly 4 times the width of Earth. It's the third largest planet, and Uranus is interesting because it and Neptune get classified as ice giants rather than gas giants, which is a different category. Their interiors contain higher concentrations of what scientists call ices, water, methane, ammonia, frozen under extreme pressure deep inside. Uranus is also tilted almost completely on its side, with a 98-degree axial tilt, meaning it basically rolls around the sun like a bowling ball. I don't know who decided that was okay, but here we are. Neptune rounds out the 8 planets, and is almost identical in size to Uranus, with a diameter of about 49,528 kilometers, 4 times Earth's width, give or take. Neptune is actually slightly smaller than Uranus but more massive, which sounds contradictory until you look at the different internal compositions. Neptune also has the strongest winds of any planet in the solar system, regularly hitting speeds above 2,000 kilometers per hour. The fastest wind ever recorded on Earth was around 400 kilometers per hour during a severe tropical cyclone. Neptune is doing 5 times that on a quiet day, just casually destroying itself with wind constantly. Respect, honestly. Now let me try to put all of this into some kind of perspective that actually means something to a human brain, because the raw numbers are almost useless emotionally. If Earth were the size of a standard golf ball, Mercury would be about a pea, Mars would be a slightly larger pea, Venus would be nearly identical to the golf ball. But Jupiter would be a full-sized basketball sitting next to your little golf ball, not a slightly bigger golf ball, an actual basketball. That's what we're dealing with. Saturn would be almost as large as the basketball but with a frisbee around its middle. Uranus and Neptune would land somewhere between a tennis ball and a racquetball, all of them floating around this tiny little golf ball that you and everyone you have ever met calls home. What I genuinely cannot get over is how empty everything is when you map out the actual distances alongside these sizes. The planets are incredibly far apart relative to how big they are. If that basketball Jupiter were placed next to the golf ball Earth at true scale distances, they'd be something like 500 meters apart in your scale model. You'd need a football stadium just to fit the inner solar system comfortably. The outer planets would stretch for kilometers beyond that. The solar system is almost entirely nothing. 8 balls of varying ridiculousness floating in an almost unimaginable amount of empty space, with Jupiter out there being absolutely absurd about the whole situation. 1,300 Earths fitting inside it, spinning every 10 hours, running the entire gravitational neighborhood like it owns the place.